Well, friends, with recent news about the SPLC and them funding far right organizations, my little diatribe about the ADL fudging the numbers on leftist violence has gotten a new boost. Oh, and by the way, speaking of leftist violence, they tried to kill President Trump again. Believe it or not, that's not even the most important thing we're going to be talking about here. Just a side quest on this episode of The Watchdog. Shalom, Saints, and welcome to this episode of The Watchdog. I am your host, CJ Cox, coming to you live on the Synagogue News, here to tell you that we are indeed living in biblical times. And of course, everything's just getting crazier and crazier, as I tend to say every show, because it's true every show. This is just news is the absolute stupidest, politics in general is just the absolute stupidest category of human knowledge, I swear to you. Anyways, let's get through some of the channel housekeeping. If you are here currently, please remember to like and share this video and consider subscribing to the channel if you have not done so. Hit that bell to get notified every time that we go live. Remember to leave any questions, comments, criticisms, concerns, critiques, or anything of that nature in the comment section down below. If you'd like to follow us on various social media platforms, you can do so. I am on Gab, Parler, Facebook, Minds, Twitter/X, I already said mine, sorry, Truth Social, and etc. You can find me at the tag The Synagogue on all of those different websites. I certainly appreciate anybody who is following me on those websites. And if you do, please do consider also sharing this video to those websites. I'll bet absolutely nobody ends up getting that reference, but I digress. In terms of other sorts of channel housekeeping things, I want to remind you guys that there are various ways in which you can support the work that we do here. You can give to the Patreon if you fancy. I don't have any content on the Patreon. However, it is a good way to support the journalistic endeavors of the Synagogue News. So if you like what we do here, please do consider giving to the Synagogue News Patreon. Link is in the description down below. Greatly appreciate anybody who is deciding to do that. Also, another way you can support the work that we do here is by giving a one-time donation through PayPal if you don't want to be beholden to some kind of a subscription service. Certainly understand that. And so that's why we have a PayPal there in the description as well. Beyond that, you will find links to various channels of mine in the description down below. I have 3 channels besides the one you're currently watching. There is the Synagogue, which is my theology and apologetics YouTube channel. Please do consider checking that out. If you do check that out, please consider subscribing and hitting the bell to get notified every time we go live, of course. We talk Christian apologetics and philosophy and theology and etc. over on that channel. Our most recent conversation had to do with, it was me and Kelly Powers over from Berean Perspective Apologetics, and it had to do with Mormonism, actually. And we actually had a conversation with Joshua Carr, conservative commentator Joshua Carr, the week before that, talking again about Mormonism. So it's definitely been a hot topic over there. Certainly appreciate anybody who's checking that out. Greatly appreciate you guys if you do. Also, link in the description below, you will find my music channel. I do rap under the stage name Dai Sensei. So you can find the channel Polymathis down there, where you will be able to get access to my music. Greatly appreciate anybody who is doing that. Also, if you would like to get access to my brand new history channel, there is a link in the description below for that. It's just a regular history channel, like what you might find with Vlogging Through History or Armchair Historian or something like that. We just launched it. Our first episode was talking about the lost cause and what really caused the United States Civil War. It's an excellent episode, if I do say so myself, and I do. So please do consider checking it out. I think you guys will definitely end up liking it as well. A couple other things we have there in the description down below is a link to my paper on the deity of deception argument, why Dr. Tim Stratton's DOD argument fails. Please do consider checking that out. It's on academia.edu for free. You can certainly check that out if you fancy. You do fancy. I know you do. Also, you can find a link to my book, 15 Questions for Calvinists Answered, down in the description as well, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's 15 chapters addressing 15 different questions that were asked of me, a Calvinist, by an Australian preacher who is a non-Calvinist. So please do consider checking that out as well. Greatly appreciate anybody who is doing that. We like to do a This Day in History fun fact. So today is April the 26th, 2026, and it is the 160-year anniversary, fun fact, of Confederate Memorial Day. So for those of you who do not know, Confederate Memorial Day is actually the origin of our standard Memorial Day. On April 26th, 1866, Southerners started celebrating the very first Memorial Day. They chose April 26, 1866, because that was the day a year prior, April 26, 1865, that Joseph E. Johnston surrendered his army to William Tecumseh Sherman in, I believe, Atlanta, Georgia, if I remember correctly. So they decided to honor that day by, establishing this holiday of Confederate Memorial Day, and it ended up becoming a holiday that's actually still celebrated to this day in various different contexts. So typically in most states, it's actually going to be the last and or fourth Monday of April. So not actually today, but tomorrow. Some states do actually celebrate April the 26th. There is also the celebration of June 3rd, which is Jefferson Davis's birthday, and the celebration of May 10th, which is the day that Thomas Stonewall Jackson died, and the celebration of January 19th, which is either Stonewall Jackson's birthday or Robert E. Lee's birthday. I don't remember which. One of them was born on the 19th. The other one was born on the 21st. And at the moment, which one is which is actually fleeting me. But nevertheless, various states still do celebrate this Confederate Memorial Day. In fact, it's a state holiday in some of these areas. And of course, those who have an interest in preserving history still continue to observe it, at least in some context, to this day. Many others do think it's kind of redundant because, as President Abraham Lincoln said numerous times, and many other presidents after him, Confederate veterans are American veterans. So if you're going to celebrate Memorial Day itself, you can also just honor the Confederate veterans at that point. But actually, none of that is the reason we're bringing it up right now. The reason we're bringing it up right now is because it was the very first Memorial Day celebration in American history. And what ended up happening is there was a general, his name fleets me at the moment, in 1866, who saw that Southerners were honoring their fallen on April 26, 1866, and decided, since the Southerners were going to do it, that actually the Northerners should also do it as well. And thus Memorial Day was born. So it's a very interesting development, historically speaking. I don't think people really know the Confederate roots of Memorial Day. Of course, Memorial Day is going to be in May, not in April, but nevertheless, it is a very interesting thing, I think. And yeah, now you know more, right? So that is our This Day in History fun fact. We went through, let's see, the other channels, the book, the paper, Patreon and PayPal, various social media platforms, Rumble. That's the one thing we forgot. So please do consider following this channel on Rumble. There are 3 major reasons for you to follow us on Rumble. Reason number 1 is that you both incentivize Rumble to continue with their non-censorious policies and disincentivize YouTube to continue in their censorious policies at the same time. Rumble is a direct competitor with YouTube. And as it stands right now, YouTube is far and away the most popular video sharing platform on the internet. And to be honest with you, it's very likely that it remains that way forever, but it's not a guarantee, right? Rumble is directly competing, especially for conservative voices, for historical voices, for Christian voices. And in supporting us on Rumble, or watching any kind of content on Rumble for that matter, you both disincentivize YouTube, because YouTube doesn't want you using their competition, and you incentivize and reward Rumble, right? You actually reward Rumble for the fact that they are not engaging in these censorious policies, which is an incredibly important thing. So that's the first reason you should be following us on Rumble at the Tag the Synagogue. The second reason you should be following us on Rumble at the Tag the Synagogue is because, excuse me, it's always a possibility that these videos get taken down. Videos have been taken down from this channel before. We know that conservative political content sometimes has a shelf life on this platform. And if any of our videos do end up getting taken down, we upload them onto Rumble so you can go and find them on Rumble, right? You won't be able to find them here anymore, but guess what? That's why we have the backup there on Rumble. And the third reason, closely related to the second reason, is just that you never know if this channel would get nuked entirely. Now, I happen to think that that's not particularly likely. But not being particularly likely is not the same thing as not being possible at all, right? And just in case somebody decided to Chaim Ben Pisak or Gavin McInnes or Alex Jones or whatever, insert conservative media figure here, this channel, just in case somebody decides to do that, we have the Rumble as a backup channel, period, right? If that were to happen, the only way you would be able to get Watchdog content is on the Rumble account. So please do consider following us on Rumble for that reason also. And with that, friends, that's pretty much all of the channel housekeeping that we have today. So let me go ahead and introduce you to our topic this evening. So first of all, before we start talking about the subject of baby murder, which is an incredibly important subject for us to be discussing, of course, I'd like to talk a little bit about two things that we won't be reading any articles for today. Thing number one, the attempted assassination of U.S. President Donald Trump yesterday, at least so we think. To be fair, it has not actually been confirmed what the motivation was yet. There has been a manifesto, and it did contain very much anti-Trump and anti-Christian rhetoric. So it's almost certain that that's the reason the shooter was there at the White House Correspondents' Dinner last night. But of course, there hasn't been a trial or anything like that, so we want to make sure to cross all T's and dot all I's. Nevertheless, excuse me. Nevertheless, I wanted to talk about that shooting because some of you may remember that a while back I did a video. I don't remember what the overall episode was about. It might have been about the assassination of Charlie Kirk, to be honest with you. In fact, I'm almost certain that it was. But we made a short, 11 minutes and 18 seconds, basically clipping part of that episode where I said CJ destroys ADL claims no leftist violence, right? CJ destroys ADL claims no leftist violence because the Anti-Defamation League was falsely claiming that in the years 2024 and 2025, or excuse me, 2024 and 2023, there were actually 0 incidences of left-wing political violence. And we saw that when Congress and the FBI were doing their own statistics, they weren't actually doing any independent studies, but they were simply regurgitating what the Anti-Defamation League had already said, right? So we went and addressed that issue, and we pointed out, of course, that the most popular instances, actually, of political violence in 2024 were all unanimously left-wing, without a single exception, right? The two most popular instances of political violence in 2024 were a failed assassination attempt on U.S. President Donald Trump, who at that point was just the Republican candidate, right? Somebody tried to kill him in Butler. They obviously failed, ended up killing the firefighter there, whose name is fleeting me at the moment. Please excuse me for that, because obviously that man, rest in peace to him. It was very sad. But nevertheless, ended up killing that individual in a failed attempt to kill U.S. President Donald Trump. And, of course, we had Luigi Magpie, or whatever his last name is, Mangione, right? Assassinating the CEO of a very big health insurance company, which was also an instance of left-wing political violence. Those were literally the two most popular instances of political violence, not just in the United States of America, but in the entire Western in the entirety of Western civilization for the calendar year of 2024, right? And yet the ADL didn't count either of them. And there were numerous other instances we pointed out in 2024 and in 2023, which the ADL did not count in those instances. We also pointed out to you how the way that they classify right-wing violence was incredibly bizarre, right? Like, for example, they would classify incel violence as right-wing violence. Even if a white nationalist individual had left-wing ideological convictions in areas like socialism and stuff like that, they would characterize that as right-wing violence. And we also pointed out that there was a little bit of a double standard here, right? In so much as that I am not a white supremacist or an incel, and neither are you. Neither is Charlie Kirk, neither is Ben Shapiro, neither is Matt Walsh, neither is Ted Cruz, etc., right? In other words, even if we grant that those people are right-wing, which I don't, by the way, But even if we were to grant that, they're not the same flavor of right wing as the vast majority of conservatives in America. In fact, even a lot of the side groups, they aren't the same, right? They're not Trumpist, which is probably the main flavor of right wing politics in America, but neither are they constitutionalists or neocons or traditionalist conservatives or paleocons or right leaning libertarians, a la Ron Paul, and etc. Right? They don't fit into any of those categories. They're not Christian nationalists, if you want to throw that in there. They're not Christian Reconstructionists, if we want to throw that in there. They're not Dominionists or people who follow the Seven Mountain Mandate, if we want to throw that in there, right? Whereas all left-wing violence is violence that follows the mainstream, right? In other words, it's not typically like anarchist violence or Stalinist violence or some other flavor of left-wing politics that isn't actually part of the mainstream progressive left in the United States of America. Rather, it's all your run-of-the-mill socialistic, progressive, Democratic Party style of ideology, right? Very heavy emphasis on anti-Israel, very heavy emphasis on immigration and being pro-illegal immigrant and anti-ICE and those sorts of things. Very heavy emphasis on LGBT, blah, blah, blah nonsense, right? So we have three tremendous problems with the ADL, in so much as that they are not counting incidences of left-wing violence, deliberately avoiding them. And we know it's deliberate because these were the most well-publicized incidences of political violence in the years in which they are making these, statistics. Number two, the way they categorize right-wing violence is incredibly bizarre at the very least, if not outright malfeasant, right? Linking up constitutional conservatives with incels, completely ridiculous. And number three, left-wing violence all fits the mainstream. It's not some abstract group, some random group out there that's got a small amount of followers that is actually committing acts of left-wing violence. Rather, it's people who identify with the mainstream progressive left, right? Now, why am I bringing that up in relation to the attempted assassination, of U.S. President Donald Trump? Well, number one, we just see that, again, there is an incidence of left-wing violence here. We've seen countless studies. You guys have probably already seen them yourselves, where people who are identifying with the left wing actually pretty consistently consider themselves to be okay with political violence. We've heard numerous incidences where Hassan Piker has either supported Hamas or Hezbollah, or has said Donald Trump needs to be assassinated, or has said that the streets need to run red with capitalist blood, and so on and so forth. We've heard streamers like Destiny outright endorse political violence. We've seen these celebrations when Charlie Kirk was killed, or people lamenting the fact that Donald Trump was not killed and that the assassination attempts failed, so on and so forth, right? So the first reason we bring this up is just to prove that video is correct. That video is absolutely correct, and we can demonstrate it's correct because consistently, whenever there is political violence in this country, it is done by one side of the political aisle. It is you virtually never hear of a right-wing person committing some act of political violence. You virtually never hear of a right-wing person committing a school shooting for the purpose of spreading some kind of terror for their ideology, right? Joe Biden, how many assassination attempts on Joe Biden were there that you remember? How many assassination attempts on Barack Obama were there that you remember? How many assassination attempts on mainstream leftist figures, Cenk Uygurs and Destinies and Anna Kasparians and Hassan Pikers and so on and so forth, do you remember? My guess is zero. My guess is you probably can't name a single one, right? And that's a good thing, by the way. We don't want people going out and assassinating our political opponents. But if you flip that to the other side, there are at least three very public assassination attempts on Donald Trump. The one in Butler, the one when somebody stormed Mar-a-Lago, and then the one last night. On top of that, there is the assassination of the United Healthcare CEO. On top of that, there is the attack at the ICE embassy in, I believe it was San Antonio, or not embassy, ICE facility. I believe it was in San Antonio. On top of that, you had the assassination of, or attempted assassination. I think they only killed employees and actually failed to assassinate the ambassador. But nevertheless, the attempted assassination of the Israeli ambassador in Pennsylvania last year. On top of that, you had the attempted assassination of Brett Kavanaugh, which I believe was 5 years ago. On top of that, you have the Covenant School shooting. On top of that, you have the Church of the Annunciation shooting. On top of that, you have the Charlie Kirk assassination. I could go on. The Summer of Love, the riots in Berkeley, the riots that took place on Trump's inauguration day, 2017, and I could still go on. I can go on longer and talk about Occupy. I can go on longer and talk about so many other things. Yet we can't think of anything. Maybe Charlottesville is the closest you can get, where there is a comparative level of violence on the right. And in that instance, notice again, Charlottesville was people like Nick Fuentes and Baked Alaska and people who are on the fringe, whereas these assassination attempts and successful assassinations and successful terrorist attacks on the part of the left are not on the fringe, but are coming from people who agree with the mainstream progressive left. But the second point, the second reason I bring up that ADL video is because we recently learned, speaking of Charlottesville, that the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is an organization quite similar to the Anti-Defamation League, was actually paying people to go out and commit acts of not necessarily violence per se, although in Charlottesville it did end in violence, but paying people to act in an extreme right-wing manner, including Charlottesville. They ended up giving money to Charlottesville. In fact, there's some very good evidence that they were paying Nick Fuentes in particular when he was organizing the whole thing that took place in Charlottesville. Meaning that even those incidences that the ADL records as right-wing violence are almost certainly, at least some of them, funded by left-wingers. Is that not insane? I think that's insane. I think it's incredible that we live in an age right now where not only can we tear apart the Anti-Defamation League's claims because they just outright ignore incidences of left-wing violence. Not only can we see left-wing violence constantly, because it's happening all the time. Not only can we poke holes in what they classify as right-wing, not only can we demonstrate that whereas there are numerous flavors of left-wing and right-wing politics, all of the violence on the right is not mainstream and is not even part of the popular fringe groups. And all of the violence on the left is not even part of the popular fringe groups, but rather simply is mainstream. Not only can we demonstrate all of those things, but on top of that, the ADL's buddy boy in SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center, is almost certainly responsible for funding at least some of those right-wing terrorist attacks. For example, Charlottesville. Excuse me, I said Charlottesville. It's Charlottesville. I find that to be incredibly amusing in a kind of sick, twisted, cynical, the comedian in Watchmen sort of way. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. I don't know. But I just felt the need to address that. Please do consider checking out that video, by the way. CJ destroys ADL claims, no leftist violence. It's an excellent video, if I do say so myself. And I do. It's so unbelievably one-sided. There's not a single instance anybody can name of a right-winger funding left-wing violence. It just doesn't exist. Maybe it has existed sometime in the far distant past. Maybe it'll happen sometime here in the future. But as of right now, it's not happening. Hasn't happened this century. Hasn't happened in the last 100 years. Very interesting. And yet the left wing is we currently see the Southern Poverty Law Center being busted for this very thing. They are manufacturing the problem and then pretending like they are heroes fighting the problem. All the while, they are supporting and endorsing individuals who are actively trying to kill their political opposition. So I just thought that was an incredibly interesting thing to note here, and I hope you guys found it to be interesting as well. One other thing I'd like to note here before we actually get to the main topic is speaking about just how mainstream this sort of thing is, right? We have guys, like I said, like Hassan Piker, who are actually outright endorsing acts of political violence. Hassan Piker, ladies and gentlemen, recently said that in fact, I'll show you the video. I'm going to show you something from my own state here first. But recently said that somebody needs to do it. And when the crowd started cheering about it, he said, yeah, see, everybody knows what I'm talking about. What he was talking about was assassinating U.S. President Donald Trump. On top of that, we know Destiny, was saying after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, he was like, people, conservatives particularly, need to fear to go out and speak. Hassan Piker has said the streets need to run red with capitalist blood. What I'm about to show you right now comes from my own state. There was a slut walk in Boise yesterday, unfortunately, because for some reason there are a bunch of really stupid broads out there that think that people are unaware about sexual assault. And to be honest with you, no, they don't actually. It's just an excuse for them to go outside and dress up like prostitutes, which is perfectly legal. You can already do that. I will judge you, but you can do that. Nevertheless, there was a slut walk in Boise yesterday, and I happened to take a very interesting picture of, excuse me, their Instagram story from yesterday. A little screenshot of their Instagram story from yesterday. I'm going to go ahead and pull it up now. And yeah, check this out here. Let's see. Where is it? Scrolling. I post far too much stuff online because I'm just going through yesterday. So let me go ahead and share my screen for you guys. Here you go. This is a picture from Slutwalk Boise. You can see right there in the upper left-hand corner. CBS 2 News was also talking about Slutwalk Boise right here, right? So that's part of their story. This was on their Instagram. And as you can see, this little video here of me and Kelly Powers talking, the reason that's up here is because I screenshotted this myself, okay? And what do you see right here? You see a picture of Donald Trump, and it says, "Dead men don't rape," with 2 X's on Donald Trump's eyes. Again, "Dead men don't rape," with 2 X's on Donald Trump's eyes. Now, if you've seen a cartoon, then you are already aware of what the 2 X's on the eyes mean, right? It is a way to kind of, in a caricatured manner, represent somebody being dead, right? So what they're meaning to show here is a picture of Donald Trump dead. And obviously Donald Trump is not dead, but they have the message here, "Dead men don't rape," implying, number one, that Donald Trump is a rapist, even though he has never been convicted of that crime. Whether he is or isn't is something that we just simply do not know, because he's never even been charged with the crime, let alone convicted of it. All we know is that somebody claimed he was, and that nothing ever ended up coming of that. So maybe, maybe not. We simply do not know. If I'm being completely honest with you, I think the woman's full of it, but that's just me. But notice here the implication. The implication is that Donald Trump, the democratically elected president of this country, who won not only the electoral vote, but also the popular vote, and won the popular vote in a year when 27 of the 50 governors were Republican, when 53 of the 100 senators were Republican, and I don't remember the exact numbers, but in which the Republicans took the House. So Republicans won across the board and took the popular vote. And yet, these people are saying that somebody should, these people at Slutwalk Boise are saying that somebody should kill that democratically elected president. Now, you guys know, if you've been watching this program for a long time, that I'm not even a Donald Trump fan. As a traditionalist conservative, I find him to be kind of a stain on the conservative movement in the United States of America. He doesn't properly represent my flavor of conservatism, excuse me, but he doesn't properly represent any of the other legitimate forms of conservatism either. He's not a constitutionalist. He's not a paleocon. He's not a libertarian. He's a populist Trumpist, and I really don't like that. And he's got far too many progressive leanings, not least of which are views that I find somewhat detestable regarding abortion and homosexuality and transgenderism and gun rights and so on and so forth. That being said, I would never in my wildest dreams imagine that somebody should shoot the man, right? You, if you're not a Trump fan, would probably never in your wildest dreams pray for somebody to shoot the man, right? Some of you guys may even be fans of his, so of course you wouldn't. You don't see anybody like Ben Shapiro for a long time was an opponent of Trump, as was Ted Cruz. They never suggested anything like this. Somebody like, who's that? David French. David French, I think, is a moron. However, to his credit, never said anything like this, right? Phil Vischer, same thing, has never said anything like this. The Lincoln Project never said anything like this. But you know who does say stuff like this? Progressive leftists. And isn't it ironic that this picture happened to have been taken and posted on the exact same day that somebody was going to try and assassinate the president and fail because he's a loser? But we move on. This right here in my own state, Slutwalk Boise, feminists implying not only that the president is a rapist without any evidence, but also implying that somebody should assassinate him. Again, the left simply, and again, this is not something that I took from somebody else. I took that picture myself. I went to the Slutwalk Boise Instagram and took that photo myself, that screenshot myself, right? So beyond that, though, right, we also have, just going to scroll up here for a minute, this Hassan Piker video. Let's see. Here it is. Check this out. This is going to be on Twitter. And this is Hassan Piker openly endorsing assassination of the sitting U.S. president.
A great video where you talked about, someone had, and you actually wrote about this, and it was a great video where you talked about, someone has to do it. See, when I say that, everyone knows exactly what I mean. That which is, I think that shows that there is a lot of anger, a lot of resentment, and untapped potential, untapped revolutionary potential, as a matter of fact. And it's a great opportunity for organizing, I think, in these and you actually wrote about this, and
see, so kind of slyly in his own mind, endorsing the assassination of the president. Once again, ironically, that happened yesterday. I cannot take credit for this one because I am not the one who found it. Nevertheless, ironically, something that was shared yesterday, something that he said yesterday. But beyond the implicit somebody should assassinate Donald Trump that you hear from Hassan Piker here, you also got an explicit call to revolutionary action, right? He says there's so much untapped revolutionary potential. Ladies and gentlemen, a revolution by its very definition is the violent overthrow of a government. It's the violent, radical overthrow of the status quo. That's what Hassan Piker is endorsing here, right? And these are just two examples from yesterday. Hassan Piker and Slutwalk Boise endorsing this sort of thing. That's not to say anything about all the different things Piker has said in the past, all the different things Cenk Uygur has said in the past, the different things that Representative Presley said in the past, or Representative Ocasio-Cortez said in the past, or Representative Omar said in the past. Governor Whitmer, Governor Cuomo, Governor Newsom, Nancy Pelosi, so on and so forth. Representative Pelosi, I guess, if I'm using people's titles. Destiny, Anna Kasparian, Diddley ASMR, so on and so forth. All of these individuals consistently endorse political violence against their opponents. Okay? And frankly, Matt Walsh said, this calls for some level of drastic action. And I am inclined to entirely agree with him. And lest people misunderstand what I am saying, what I mean by drastic action is that Hassan Piker needs to be charged with treason, potentially put in prison for the rest of his life, and if not that, executed. And I'm not kidding. If you are going to publicly endorse violence against the United States, you are a traitor. You need to be charged with treason. The penalty for treason is at least potentially as much as death. Okay? At the very least, the man should never see the light of day again. He should spend his life in Guantanamo Bay, quite frankly. And not just him, but various individuals like him. If the president does not take the steps necessary to crush the violent left with utter ruthlessness, they will eventually take power. They will eventually assassinate more people. They will eventually use the law to put people in prison who have done nothing, as they already did in the Biden years and in the Obama years. We already know that they spied on the Trump campaign in 2016. We already know that they put a bunch of people in prison who didn't deserve to be there during the Biden years, most notably J6 protesters, but also numerous pro-life protesters and so on and so forth. See, Ammon Bundy is another good example of that. We already know what these people intend to do. And do we want a dictatorship in this country? Of course we do not. Do we want martial law in this country? Of course we do not. Do we want a civil war in this country? Of course we do not. Well, guess what? The only way you avoid those things is by doing what President Woodrow Wilson already did in the 1910s, doing what President Abraham Lincoln already did in the 1860s, doing what President George Washington already did in the 1790s. It is not as if this is unprecedented, okay? You need to crush the opposition with ruthlessness and lightning fast efficiency. That is the only way we get out of this with the country surviving without a bloody civil war. It's either that or a national divorce. Those are the only two options. I'm not speaking here as somebody who is an alarmist or a panican. Okay? These are the options. You can either get rid of people like Destiny and Hassan Piker, people like those who inhabit Antifa and Black Lives Matter and etc. You can either charge them. You don't have to trump up any charges. Just charge them with what they're doing. They are committing acts of violence. They are committing acts of terrorism. They are threatening revolution. Charge them. If I were to go outside and incite violence right now, guess what? Boise PD would arrest me and I would go to jail. So why is Hassan Piker not in prison? Why is Destiny not in prison? Why is Antifa allowed to exist? They designated the Army of God a terrorist organization. Why are they not designating Antifa a terrorist organization? Somebody might say, well, Trump did that after the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Yeah, and then proceeded to do precisely nothing about it, which is mind-boggling to me. He's like public enemy number one for them. They're consistently trying to kill him, and he decides to do literally nothing. It makes no sense to me. We absolutely need somebody to crush the violent left under boot, because that is the only way you are going to ensure that this country does not devolve into chaos. And while we're at it, pass the SAVE Act, make sure that we have election integrity, okay? Get rid of mail-in ballots and deport the illegal immigrants. Fix the problems while you have both houses in Congress, and the presidency. Because chances are come November, you're not going to. And even if you do, there's still a statute of limitations on that, for lack of a better term. You don't have power forever. The Democrats will eventually take power, and if not them, somebody else. The only way to avoid that is a dictatorship. And of course, we don't want a dictatorship. So somebody, right now it's President Donald Trump, he's the one who's in office, somebody needs to accomplish the things that we were promised were going to be accomplished. Okay? We shouldn't need 3 public and 8 different not so famous assassination attempts on the president for somebody to say, hey, there's a lot of violent leftists out there. Perhaps we should crush them. We shouldn't need to see a compilation of 30 different times in which Hassan Piker endorses political violence for somebody to say, hey, maybe this dude should breathe prison air for the rest of his miserable, disgusting life. Okay? I don't understand how that's a controversial statement. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on to something else, because as it turns out, there is lots of other things to talk about. So, you guys see my title here today is Idahoans United for Lying About Abortion, right? So there is an organization here in my state called Idahoans United for Women and Families. Okay, Idahoans United for Women and Families. And unfortunately, this group has already collected enough signatures that we're going to be voting on this come November, which worries me because the human population is just repulsive sometimes. At any rate, though, they are trying to loosen abortion restrictions here in the state of Idaho. For those of you who do not know, we have some of the strictest abortion laws in the state of Idaho. In my opinion, they are not yet strict enough. A 6-week ban, we have a 6-week ban at the moment, which I don't think goes far enough. We also do have exceptions for, rape and incest, which I do not think should exist. So Idaho doing far better than the vast majority of states. I think the only one that has us beat right now is Oklahoma. But still not going far enough, right? There is also an exception for threat to the mother's life, and there are exceptions for threat to the mother's health, okay? Now, this group, Idahoans United for Women and Families, has been trying to say that, in fact, there is not any exceptions for the life of the mother, or not any exceptions, rather, for the health of the mother. And the reason that they're doing that is because they're trying to convince people to sign this petition, so of course they can send it to a referendum, and the citizens of Idaho can vote on it. Which, by the way, for the record, call me archaic and undemocratic if you like. I don't think the people should be allowed to vote on child murder, frankly. You just shouldn't be allowed to vote on that. It's just illegal. If you don't like it, that's too bad for you. Nobody cares, right? Or at least nobody should care. I hate this idea of this democratic idea where we're like, everything needs to be up for a vote. We need to call a community gathering and decide whether or not it's cool to kill babies. Like, imagine holding a vote on whether or not it was cool to rape 12-year-olds. That would obviously be repulsive, right? Like, somebody should step in at that point and say, hey, you're actually not allowed to vote on this. Sorry, it's just going to be a crime. Doesn't really matter what you have to say about it. Oh, it's undemocratic. Yeah, I don't care, actually. In fact, in this particular instance, I think democracy is incredibly stupid, if I'm being honest with you. There's a reason we're a constitutional republic and not a direct democracy or a pure democracy. Democracy is two wolves and a sheep deciding on what is for dinner, as I believe Benjamin Franklin said, or at least it's attributed to him. I don't know if he actually said it. Nevertheless, this group has actually managed to collect the requisite number of signatures. So here is a quick article here. A group seeking to end Idaho's abortion ban says it's met signature goal in 19 legislative districts. Idahoans United for Women and Families hope to qualify a ballot initiative for November's general election. And for those of you who do not know, you need at least 6% of the voting population and at least 6% of the population from 18 voting districts in order to get on the ballot for a referendum, right? So that's pretty straightforward, right? You need 6% of the total voting population of Idaho. And also in at least 18 different districts, you need to get 6% of the voting population in each one of those districts, right? And according to Idahoans United for Women and Families, they have actually met those goals, right? So reading just a little bit, a group trying to qualify a ballot initiative to end Idaho's abortion ban said Friday that it has met its signature gathering goals in more than enough legislative districts to qualify for the November general election. The group Idahoans United for Women and Families announced Friday that it has hit its signature goals in 19 different legislative districts and that counties have officially processed 95,000 of the 104,000 signatures they have gathered. If the state verifies those results, that would be more than enough to qualify the Reproductive Freedom and Privacy Act for November's general election ballot. Quote, it's Friday afternoon, so I'll make this quick. The counties have processed over 95%, of our 104,000 submitted signatures, and the news is very good, end quote. Idahoans United Executive Director Melanie Fulwell wrote in an email to supporters. Supporters have until April 30th to turn in their final signatures for verification to the Secretary of State's office. And then we go into a little bit about how this qualifies. In Idaho, a ballot initiative is a form of direct democracy, which, by the way, should be illegal. There should be 0 instances in which direct democracy is allowed. It's a stupid idea. People have known for a long time it was a stupid idea. Every single one of the founders, with the possible exception of Thomas Jefferson, thought it was a stupid idea. Socrates and Plato and Aristotle thought it was a stupid idea. Everybody in the Roman Republic thought it was a stupid idea. Everybody in the Athenian Republic thought it was a stupid idea. Everybody in the Florentine Republic thought it was a stupid idea. The reason people think it's a stupid idea is because it's a stupid idea. It's not smart. There is no situation in which 501 out of 1,000 people should dictate the direction of the state or country. At any rate, it's where the voters, not the Idaho legislature, decide whether to pass a proposed law. To qualify for the general election, supporters must collect signatures from at least 6% of the registered voters statewide and from at least 6% of the registered voters in at least 18 of Idaho's 35 legislative districts. You'll notice that's over half. To achieve the 6% statewide total, supporters need 70,725 verified signatures. As you recall, they are currently claiming they have 104,000. If the Reproductive Freedom and Privacy Act meets the requirement to appear on the November ballot, it would take a simple majority, meaning 50.01% of votes to approve it. So, unfortunately, if this ends up being verified, the citizens of Idaho are going to actually get a chance to vote on whether or not babies have a right to live, which is, of course, disgusting. Babies obviously have a right to live. And there are very many different things that are problematic with this particular campaign. First and foremost, let me show you guys a little bit of my own journalistic work here. Okay, so going back to my own Facebook, and I got to pull up a separate Facebook of mine, actually. So just a moment, friends. We'll get the screen share here. And while I am pulling this up, please remember to like and share this video and consider subscribing to the channel if you have not done so. Hit that bell to get notified every time we go live. Leave any questions, comments, criticisms, concerns, critiques, or anything of that nature in the comment section down below. And also, please do remember to follow us on various social media platforms. So check this out, friends. Oh, sorry, wrong thing there. So this is me actually messaging directly Idahoans United for Women and Families, which, by the way, isn't it hilarious that every time the left comes up with a name, they end up actually advocating for the exact opposite thing, right? Like they always want to advocate for something like they'll talk about this is for Idahoans United for Women and Families, and in reality, they want to kill babies, which is anti-family, and they want to put the sin of murder on the heads of women, which is anti-woman. At any rate, you guys can kind of hopefully see down here. Let me see. Not really. I wish I could pull this up to be more full. So it's in the lower right-hand corner from where you're at. I don't know if there's any way I can blow it up to make it bigger, which is unfortunate. I don't think I can. All right. So I asked Idahoans United for Women and Families, why are you lying in your abortion commercials? Abortion is legal in Idaho if necessary for the health of the mother. I'm fairly certain that you know that, so why are you lying? Idahoans United responded to me, while Idaho does have a life of the mother exception, there is no health exception for mothers, nor in cases of fatal fetal diagnosis, which has resulted in some profoundly difficult situations for a lot of folks. I responded, you just said while Idaho does have a life of the mother exception, there is no health exception for mothers. That's a contradiction. Life of the mother exceptions are definitionally health of mother exceptions. If what you mean is there is no exceptions for non-fatal health problems, then say that. Why won't you? Because you know that most Idahoans would agree with that. And you'll notice I did not get a response. They read what I said, but I did not get a response. So why is that relevant? Well, it's incredibly relevant because it means that they are actually actively, Idahoans United is currently going around saying, hey, we need to pass this Reproductive Freedom Act because it is currently not legal for health of the mother to get an abortion. The Idaho prevents any, Idaho does not have an exception for threat to the mother's health in their abortion code. And when I confront them on that on Facebook, they say, oh no, yeah, we know it exists, but we just don't think that that it goes far enough for our liking, right? Now, let me be perfectly clear here. I don't think there should be any exceptions for abortion. When it comes to threat to the mother's life, obviously, if you have a choice to save one life or save 0 lives, you save one. But virtually all OBGYNs are in unanimous agreement that abortions that cause a threat to the mother's life or abortions that are necessary because of a threat to the mother's life are a result of an already non-viable fetus, right? Like something like an ectopic pregnancy. The fetus is already dead. That's not an abortion, right? If something happens later on, like in the 3rd trimester, then an abortion is not necessary there because the fetus is viable. You can just simply deliver via C-section or something along those lines, right? So there's no situation in which killing a viable fetus is necessary in order to save the life of the mother. There are situations in which the fetus is already dead, in which case, obviously, you need to act. And there are situations in which the fetus does need to be removed from the pregnant woman, but that's just called early delivery, and we do that all the time. My own son was delivered through a early delivery, right? Idahoans United acknowledges in this response to me that they know that Idaho has exceptions for threat to the mother. They just simply don't care. They just simply say, oh, well, we don't think that this goes far enough, and so we're going to lie as if there is, in fact, no exceptions at all, right? That way we can scare people into supporting our detestable organization here. Now let's go ahead and pull up their website so we can do a little bit more deep diving here on this group. Sorry, having a little bit of a technical issue there. There we are. So this is their website, Idahoans United for Women and Families. Looking to sign the petition, of course. No, we are not. And let's look at some of the claims that we have here. So they say we're gathering signatures to put the Reproductive Freedom and Privacy Act on the November 2026 ballot in Idaho. Sign up now to join a local team. Why exactly do they want to do this? And also, what exactly does this even mean? And we will read for you the Reproductive Freedom and Privacy Act because it's online. You can find it for yourself, right? And we'll also read for you the current Idaho state law so that you don't have to take my or Idahoans United's word for it. You can actually see what the law says for yourself. But real quick, while we're here, let's go ahead and do some digging. Why exactly do they think it's necessary? Let's go to About, right? Idahoans United for Women and Families is an Idaho-based 501c4 organization. Our mission is to advocate for and restore access to comprehensive reproductive health care while promoting the well-being of women, children, and families in Idaho. Like the majority of our fellow Idahoans, we believe that we deserve the freedom to make our own reproductive health care decisions with privacy, dignity, and in consultation, with trusted care providers, clergy, and family members. Goes down to talk about the board of directors. You have Executive Director Melanie Falwell. Melanie is a lifelong Idahoan and mother of two who has a history of both volunteer and paid work around issue and policy advocacy here in Idaho, particularly these policies that impact well-being and health of women and children. You have Reverend Mike Connor, the fake reverend at the fake United Methodist Church, which is an apostate church. He is the senior pastor at First United Methodist Church in Pocatello, Idaho. Lives with his wife and 3-year-old daughter in Pocatello. He says, quote, as someone who provides counsel to women and families in some of the most difficult days of their lives, I know that Idaho's current laws are needlessly criminalizing, complicating, and compromising private decisions. I want better for my community, end quote. Goes on to list Cynthia Dalsing, Linda Dixon, Summer Jackman, Florina Rubio, and so on and so forth, right? This is their board of directors and a little bit about them. Let's go ahead and look at their initiative. 3 years ago, the trigger ban changed Idaho for the worst. For nearly 50 years, Idahoans had the personal liberty to make private medical decisions, including regulated access to abortion, with their doctors, not politicians. But Idaho's trigger abortion ban ended all that. Since the ban, doctors are leaving, delivery rooms are closing, and everyone is finding it harder to access basic medical care. That's not true, by the way. Worst of all, women are forced to get sicker, suffer, and risk their lives while they wait for life-saving care. That's also not true. We'll go ahead and demonstrate that. And even though they know this ban is breaking us, our legislature won't act to fix what is broken. No one is coming to save us. But here in Idaho, we have the power to save ourselves with the Reproductive Freedom and Privacy Act. What it is. The Reproductive Freedom and Privacy Act is a citizen-led ballot initiative that means it's a law written by citizens who are acting when their legislature fails to fix a problem. Fix a problem. See, these people, when these people are talking about fixing a problem, what they mean is you're not legally allowed to actually sociopathically murder your baby. That's what they're talking about. Okay, let's not pretend that these people are on equal playing fields with us. They're not. They're disgusting. They're horrible people. They are Nazi-esque. Okay, you do not hate abortion enough. However much you hate it, it's not enough. Okay, these people are the worst of the worst. They are scum of the world. We just saw here this claim. Worst of all, women are forced to get sicker, suffer, and risk their lives while they wait for life-saving care. That's simply not true. Again, we just saw when I was speaking to them there on the message, right, that they themselves know that Idaho has a threat to the mother's life exception. They're aware of it. They don't need somebody to convince them because they already know. And yet here on their website, they lie to you and say that women are out here dying and getting sicker because they don't have access to abortion in the state of Idaho. That's not true. But the problem for them is not the fact that women are getting sicker and dying, because that's not real. It doesn't happen. There's not one, fun fact, there is not one single documented case of a woman dying because she did not have access to abortion in the United States anywhere since Jackson v. Dobbs was passed. Not one. Not in Idaho, not in Wyoming, not in South Dakota, not in Alaska, not in Texas, not in Oklahoma, not in Alabama, not in Georgia. Doesn't exist. Has never happened. Okay? And they know that. But the problem for them is not the fact that women are getting sick, because they know that that's not happening. The problem for them is that women are not able to kill their babies, quote unquote, up until the point of fetal viability. That's their claim. Idahoans United for Women and Families is powering the initiative with grassroots volunteers and donors. Our polling indicates the majority of Idahoans agree government should stay out of private medical decisions. Which, by the way, if that's true, then Idaho deserves God's judgment. Idaho deserves God's judgment. Simply, it is that simple. If red state Idaho is willing to pass more baby murder, then red state Idaho deserves droughts and economic collapse and higher crime rates, which they will get, by the way, because the Lord is going to he's going to judge people for what they do. Frankly, it's just going to happen, right? Let's see if we can find the actual commercial itself here. I don't know if they have it. Not that we need it. We've already demonstrated what exactly they're all about. But let's go ahead and see if we can find the commercial on here. Let's go to their Instagram. Let's see. Oh my goodness. For some reason, it is making me sign in to my profile in order to get access to this Instagram. So my apologies, friends. I was, like I said, just going to show you the website itself, but I think you guys should hear this commercial so that you can see the lies for yourself. Oh, I'm getting word that I don't actually have my screen shared at the moment, or at least not where I want it to be shared. You know what? That's fine, actually, because I haven't found the commercial yet anyway. So let me see if I can find it first, and then if I do, I will go ahead and show it to you guys. But note what we've already even demonstrated here, right? We have already demonstrated that they are aware that they're lying. We have already demonstrated that they are willing to continue lying about it. We've already demonstrated that they make this claim that there are no exceptions in Idaho. And by the way, like I said, I don't think Idaho goes far enough. I'm not even sitting here arguing that there should be exceptions. I am simply pointing out that there are currently exceptions for health of the mother, and that these guys are lying about it. They're lying through their teeth because they want there to be more access to baby murder. That is their goal, okay? So they don't actually have the commercial here on their Twitter. That's a shame, or on their Instagram. That's a shame. So let's just go ahead and move on to reading first what their initiative actually says, and then we will go ahead and read what Idaho state law actually is. So this is the Reproductive Freedom and Privacy Act initiative. They say, Dear Secretary McGrain, this letter accompanies our resubmission of the enclosed Reproductive Freedom and Privacy Act initiative, which would establish a right to make private reproductive health care decisions, including abortion, up to fetal viability and in medical emergencies. Notice what they're actually fighting for. They talk about, hey, women are getting sicker, women are dying, there's no exception for threat to health or threat to the health of the mother, right? But then you actually get to what they're trying to pass, and it's legalizing all abortion up to fetal viability and abortion in medical emergencies. Meaning not simply legalizing abortion in medical emergencies. No, they actually want to legalize abortion up to fetal viability as well as legalize abortion in cases of medical emergencies. Now, of course, they already know that it's legal in cases of medical emergencies. Once again, we demonstrated that already by virtue of my little discussion with them. But in case you guys are not aware, fetal viability, when does fetal viability occur? Fetal viability is generally considered to occur around 23 to 24 weeks, although some people say that it's around 28 weeks. Okay? 23 to 24 weeks. If you just assume that is 4 weeks per month, which is not exactly a one-to-one, of course, then that means the first 2 trimesters. They want legalized abortion for any reason in the first 2 trimesters. That's what they're fighting for. Has nothing to do with threat to the mother, has nothing to do with health of the mother, has nothing to do with women dying or getting sicker, which is a falsehood. It's not happening. They want, let me go ahead and highlight here, abortion up to fetal viability. Well, let me highlight. That's unfortunate. Abortion up to fetal viability and in medical emergencies. We continue. We are submitting the initiative with a new petition, making slight revisions to the prior version to address typos and clarify key terms, including to further clarify that the initiative does not create a financial obligation on the state, its agencies, or their programs to pay for, fund, or subsidize the reproductive health care protected by the initiative. Because of this change, accompanied by a new petition, we respectfully ask that your office request that the official fiscal impact statement for the initiative from the Division of Financial Management be issued to reflect the enclosed initiative's further clarified provision. Care has been provided, or has been taken rather, to avoid substantive changes, my goodness, to the operative portions of the initiative, including those addressed by the issued titles, while enhancing clarity and ensuring the language accurately reflects its purpose and intent. Scrolling down. This is the bill that they wish to pass. Be it enacted by the people of the state of Idaho. Section 1, that Title 39, Idaho Code B, and the same is hereby amended by the addition thereto of a new chapter to be known and designated as Chapter 8, Title 39, Idaho Code, and to read as follows. Short title. This act shall be known and may be cited as the Reproductive Freedom and Privacy Act. Statement of purpose. The Reproductive Freedom and Privacy Act recognizes that reproductive health care choices such as the use of contraception, fertility treatments, childbirth care, miscarriage care, the decision to continue one's own pregnancy, and abortion are deeply private matters that should be decided by a person in consultation with their healthcare provider. Again, the point has nothing to do with women's health. It has nothing to do with women's health. It has everything to do with the fact that they do not have the right, quote unquote, to murder their children in utero, and they believe they should have that right. That is what this bill is for. They are saying it plainly because guess what? This is the bill that's going to get passed, right? If it ends up getting passed. So, were this to get passed, they wouldn't, if they really wanted health care of the mother, then what they would be passing would be health, something that had to do with health of the mother, right? They would have to be passing something that says, hey, in cases of medical emergencies, you should be allowed to get an abortion. But number one, that's not what they want, so that's not what they're going to put in the bill. And number two, that's already legal in Idaho, right? Continuing. Deeply private, blah, blah, blah. This statute upholds a person's rights to make their own decisions based on their own values, healthcare needs, and circumstances, free from the fear of external pressures or punitive consequences to them or their healthcare provider. The Act supports a person's right to to reproductive freedom and privacy, protects the confidential nature of the patient-provider relationship, and secures a person's right to make their own healthcare decisions without government interference. Now, of course, this is all just complete bogus, right? Like, if I were to say I have a right to do what I want with my body, who are you to come at me against something like rape? You would say, yeah, but rape victimizes somebody else. There's actually a victim in the situation when you decide to use your body to rape somebody else. Isn't that funny? Because I was told that that didn't actually matter. My body, my choice. But now all of the sudden, you want to talk about victimization of another human being. That's interesting. Because we know scientifically that the fetus is a human. We know scientifically that it is alive. We know scientifically that it is innocent, or excuse me, we know legally rather that it is innocent. It hasn't committed any crime. The killing of an innocent human being is wrong given any reasonable circumstance, right? Alternative, rather, given any reasonable alternative, right? So, what is the argument here? If it's okay for you to murder your kid because my body, my choice, why is it not okay for me to go rape somebody because my body, my choice? Don't use there's a victim situation here, or defense rather, right? Because guess what? There's a victim in your case too. And let me clarify, I obviously think that rape should be illegal. In fact, rapists should be executed. But the point is, you guys are making an argument, my body, my choice, I should have freedom to do what I want with my body. That is just fundamentally absurd. And it leads to obvious absurdities, right? I don't even have to go with something extreme like rape. I could say like heroin. Well, it's my body, it's my choice. Why should heroin be illegal? It's my body. Who are you to say what I can do with my body? I could say something along the lines of men should be allowed to ditch pregnant women. You deal with it yourself. You shouldn't force me to pay child support. My money, it's my choice, right? Why is that not a good argument? Of course, we know these are terrible arguments. We know that these positions are morally abhorrent, but it's the exact same logic as the pro-abort uses to justify the murder of babies in utero, right? Pressing forward. The Reproductive Freedom and Privacy Act. This act establishes a right to make private reproductive health care decisions, including abortion up to fetal viability and in medical emergencies. Notice, again, up to fetal viability, that's for the first 24 weeks, and meaning not exclusively, in medical emergencies, notwithstanding any other provision of law to the contrary. Every person has the right to reproductive freedom and privacy, which is the right to make a personal decision about reproductive health care that directly impacts the person's own body, including but not limited to the right to make decisions about abortion, childbirth care, contraception, fertility treatment, miscarriage care, prenatal pregnancy, and postpartum care. The right to reproductive freedom and privacy includes the right of privacy in making personal decisions about reproductive health care in consultation with a healthcare provider. I would like to ask, by the way, we keep using this word right. What does that mean? What is a right? Because another thing that's incredibly deceptive about leftists is that they don't actually believe human rights are a real thing, right? We see from the Declaration of Independence, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights. And of course, it goes on to list life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Notice one of those is life, by the way. Rights arise from the creator's will. That's the way our Constitution is established, or the foundation of our Constitution. That's the foundation of our Declaration of Independence. That's the foundation of the very concept of human rights. It is based off of the creator's will, whether that be his revealed will in the scriptures, or whether that be his will as revealed by natural law, right? And again, one of those things expressly mentioned in the Declaration of Independence is life. Not simply liberty in pursuit of happiness, but life. And notice life comes first. It's life, then liberty in pursuit of happiness. Why? Because you can't experience liberty or pursue any happiness if you're not alive, right? Life is not just a fundamental right, but it is the fundamental right. You have a right to live. Nobody has a right to take that away from you, unless, of course, you have forfeit that right by means of some heinous act or warfare or something along those lines, right? In other words, people have a right to kill for self-defense purposes. I think the death penalty is perfectly legitimate. And obviously, if I'm in war, you're a soldier across from me, we have the right to shoot at each other, in that particular instance. Nobody can hold a soldier accountable for killing somebody in battle. Barring those extremely rare circumstances, there is simply no right to take somebody's life. It is not a fundamental right. It is the fundamental right. It is the right, the foundational right, the right on which all other rights are built. Okay? It's expressly mentioned there in the Constitution. It's expressly mentioned, by the by, in the 14th Amendment of the Constitution, which ironically is the exact same amendment that people use to argue for quote unquote abortion rights. If you don't believe me, let me go ahead and quote the 14th Amendment. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protections of the law. So quite literally, abortion is unconstitutional. The states and the United States government are not allowed to deprive any person of life without due process of law. Okay? Is the fetus a human being? Yes, it is. We can prove that scientifically. Is the fetus alive? Yes, it is. We can prove that scientifically. Is it innocent? Are we going to court to execute these babies? Obviously, we are not. Ergo, abortion is unconstitutional. And of course, contrary to the Declaration of Independence. But I digress. I'm actually getting off on a tangent here. The point of this was to say, what do you mean, leftist, by rights? Because you don't believe in rights. You don't believe there is something inherent in each of us that allows for certain liberties, right? Human beings have inherent rights according to the Declaration of Independence. Liberals do not believe that. Liberals don't believe in an inherent right to self-defense, for example, which is why they consistently try to pass gun control legislation. This issue right here demonstrates they don't believe in an inherent right to life. They don't believe in an inherent right to private property. They don't believe in an inherent right to liberty in most situations, right? They simply don't believe human rights are a thing. They don't accept the notion that human beings are endowed by their creator with inalienable privileges. They believe rights come from the state, right comes from the government, rights come from some random abstract Marxist theory. But they don't come from the essence of what it is to be human. They don't come from the creator. So what do you mean reproductive rights? I can just simply deny, based on your own logic, that any rights exist at all. You reject the right to life, the most fundamental of all rights enshrined in both the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, not to mention sacred scripture. Let your reverend know about that. Right? You reject that right, the most fundamental of all liberties that could possibly exist. So what if I just flatly say, no, I don't think you have any reproductive rights? Now, of course, I do think that there are some reproductive rights. For example, nobody has a right to fix you against your will, at least not without due process of law. But in terms of whether or not you have the right to terminate a human being, to kill, to murder a human being, yeah, I just flatly reject that you have that right. It doesn't exist. And guess what? On your worldview, neither does any other right for that matter. You don't believe in one single solitary human right. Not one, because the concept is foreign to you guys. Digression aside. A person's voluntary exercise of the right to reproductive freedom and privacy shall not be burdened, interfered with, discriminated against, deprived, or prohibited by the state directly or indirectly in any manner, unless such state action is narrowly tailored to improve or maintain the health of the person seeking reproductive health care, scrolling down, through the least restrictive means. Any person or entity may voluntarily advise, assist, facilitate, inform, refer, or otherwise aid another person exercising the right to reproductive freedom and privacy, and the state shall not burden, interfere with, discriminate against, deprive, or prohibit such acts directly or indirectly in any manner, unless such state action is narrowly tailored to improve or maintain the health of the person seeking reproductive health care through the least restrictive means. In no case may reproductive health care provided, in no case may reproductive health care provided consistent with the act by a healthcare provider be a basis for professional discipline, civil liability, or criminal liability as to a healthcare provider solely on the basis that the healthcare provider knowingly advised, assisted, facilitated, informed, referred, or otherwise aided a person in exercising their right to reproductive freedom and privacy. Provided further that as this act specifically applies to abortion, after the point of fetal viability, again, that is 24 weeks, it shall not be a violation of the right to reproductive freedom and privacy for the state to regulate abortion except in cases of medical emergency. The provisions of this act are to be liberally construed in favor of reproductive freedom and privacy and are intended to control over any other section of Idaho Code consistent with the following. Nothing in this act shall be construed to limit any right or access to reproductive health care, including but not limited to abortion, that currently exists or is otherwise provided for or guaranteed in law. This act does not create a financial obligation on the state, its agencies, or other programs to pay for, fund, or subsidize the reproductive health care protected by this act. Nothing in this act will be deemed to bar or otherwise apply to a claim of medical malpractice against a healthcare provider for failing to comply with the applicable community standards of healthcare practice as set forth in Section 61012 Idaho Code. Nothing in this act will infringe upon the protections and accommodations regarding a healthcare provider's freedom of conscience as set forth in Section 18611 Idaho Code. If this application of any provision, of any provision of this act is declared invalid for any reason, including by the application thereof, such invalidity shall not affect the validity of the remaining portions of the act that can be given effect without the invalid provisions or applications, and to the end the provision of this act are severable. Definitions. Abortion means a medical treatment that is intended to terminate a pregnancy. Childbirth means the medical treatment provided by healthcare providers in the process of labor and delivery, including all stages of labor, the act of giving birth, and any medical procedures related to the delivery of the child, whether by vaginal or cesarean section. Contraception means any act of preventing pregnancy, including the use of any device, drug, procedure, or biological product intended for use in the prevention of pregnancy. Fetal viability means the point in a pregnancy when, on the basis of a physician's good faith medical judgment, based on the facts known at the time and determined on a case-by-case basis, the fetus has a significant likelihood of sustained survival outside of the uterus without extraordinary medical measures, which pushes that, by the way, now closer to 28 weeks. Fertility treatment means the treatment of infertility and related conditions, including but not limited to assisted reproductive technology and in vitro fertilization, that's IVF. Healthcare provider means a licensed person, or any entity that provides healthcare or medical treatment. Medical emergency means a physical medical condition that, on the basis of a physician's good faith medical judgment, based on the facts known at the time and determined on a case-by-case basis, complicates the physical medical condition of a pregnant patient as to warrant an abortion. To protect a pregnant patient's life, or, notice, okay, meaning they don't just want to protect the life of the mother, they actually, in situations that are considered medical emergencies by their definition, right, that would not actually be emergencies, they would still like there to be legal abortion, right, to protect a pregnant patient's life, or for which a delay may place the health of a pregnant patient in serious jeopardy, cause serious impairment to bodily function of a pregnant patient, or cause serious dysfunction of any bodily organ or part of the pregnant patient's body. I do love that they say pregnant patient rather than woman. It's just hilarious to me. So they want the doctors to be able to prescribe an abortion for virtually any reason whatsoever, because, fun fact, pregnancy does cause significant bodily changes pretty much 100% of the time. Okay? Miscarriage care means the treatment and management of pregnancy loss. Physician means a person licensed to practice medicine and or surgery or osteopathic medicine and surgery in the state as provided in Chapter 18, Title 54. A physician is a healthcare provider as defined in this act. Prenatal pregnancy and postpartum care means healthcare and other medical services provided before, during, and after childbirth, including but not limited to exams, treatments, diagnostic testing, postpartum recovery and support, and any other care necessary for the health of the patient. Reproductive care means Healthcare and other medical services related to the reproductive processes, functions, and systems. It includes, but is not limited to, abortion, contraception, childbirth, fertility treatment, miscarriage care, and prenatal pregnancy and postpartum care. Section 2, this act shall be in full force and effect on or after January 1st, 2027. So as you can see here, right? And then they go on to talk more about the basically talking to the secretary here. As you can see here, what they want is not abortion in cases of threat to the mother's life. Rather, they want there to be full legal abortion for any reason up until the point of fetal viability, which is through the first 2 trimesters. And they want there to be extremely liberal rules regarding 3rd trimester abortion. In other words, they want it to go back to the way it was. That's what this is. And they're saying, oh, but there's no exception for threat to the mother's life, even though they have acknowledged, and we just demonstrated for you, that they have acknowledged that that is in fact not true. They know it's not true. They're lying to you so that they can get more babies murdered. That's what they want. They want babies killed. These are sociopaths. These are not your everyday average political opponents, my friends. We need to be perfectly clear about this issue. What you want is to murder babies. That is what you want. Okay? Idahoans United for Women and Families, may God curse your organization. May it be destroyed. May it go bankrupt. May every single one of you experience the wrath of God. Now, of course, we have been saying numerous times that they're lying, and we've actually pointed out that they even know that they're lying. But let's go ahead real quick and prove that they are lying, which, fun fact, is actually incredibly easy to do. Section 18622 of the Idaho State Legislature, Defense of Life Act. Okay? Go ahead and read this. Except as provided in subsection 2 of this section, every person who performs or attempts to perform an abortion as defined in this chapter commits the crime of criminal abortion. Criminal abortion shall be a felony punishable by a sentence of imprisonment of no less than 2 years and no more than 5 years in prison, which is insane, by the way. It should be life in prison, but I digress. The professional license of any healthcare professional who performs or attempts to perform an abortion or who assists in performing or attempting to perform an abortion in violation of this subsection shall be suspended by the appropriate licensing board for a minimum of 6 months upon first offense and shall be permanently revoked upon a subsequent offense. The following shall not be considered criminal abortions for purposes of subsection of this section. Notice, everything that we're about to list shall not be considered criminal abortions, okay? The abortion was performed or attempted by a physician as defined in this chapter, and the physician determined in his good faith medical judgment and based on the facts known to the physician at the time that the abortion was necessary to prevent the death of the pregnant woman. No abortion shall be deemed necessary to prevent the death of the pregnant woman because the physician believes that the woman may or will take action to harm herself. And the physician performed or attempted to perform the abortion in the manner that, in his good faith medical judgment and based on the facts known to the physician at the time, provided the best opportunity for the unborn child to survive unless, in his good faith medical judgment, termination of the pregnancy in that manner would have posed a greater risk of the death of the pregnant woman. No such greater risk shall be deemed to exist because the physician believes that the woman may or will take action to harm herself. The abortion was performed or attempted by a physician as defined in this chapter during the first trimester of pregnancy, and if the woman is not a minor or subject to the guardianship, then prior to the performance of this abortion, the woman has reported to a law enforcement agency that she is the victim of an act of rape or incest and provided a copy of such report to the physician who is to perform the abortion. The copy of the law shall remain a confidential part of the woman's medical record subject to applicable privacy laws, or if the woman is a minor or subject to a guardianship, then prior to the performance of the abortion, the woman or her parent or guardian has reported to a law enforcement agency or child protective services that she is the victim of an act of rape or incest, and a copy of such report has been provided to the physician who is to perform the abortion. The copy of the report shall remain a confidential part of the woman's medical record subject to applicable privacy laws. So, what did we find here, friends? We found that under current Idaho state law, under the currently enshrined Defense of Life Act, women are allowed to get abortions for cases of rape, for cases of incest, and in cases where there is a threat to the mother's life. So flatly, Idahoans United for Women and Families is lying to you. They say there are no exceptions for health to the mother. That is outright not true. And it's never been true, by the way. There has not been one single point in the history of the state of Idaho where it has been true. We have not only demonstrated to you that they know that, they said, yeah, we recognize that, but there's no exceptions for health, which is a literal contradiction. We've not only demonstrated to you that they know that, but now we've read the law, both the law as it currently stands, the Defense of Life Act, and their Reproductive Freedom and Privacy Act. And you will notice that in the current Idaho state law, Defense of Life Act, it is in fact legal to get an abortion for threat to your life. It is in fact legal to get an abortion because of rape. It is in fact legal to get an abortion because of incest. All the exceptions that the pro-choicers talk about, what about, you already have in this state. But that's not what they're interested in. That's just simply what their marketing campaign is telling you that they're interested in, so that they can generate fear, so that they can legalize more baby murder. And we demonstrated that not only by reading the law, not only by calling them out and getting a response from them where they acknowledged that this is the case, but when we read their very own act, it says that there should be legal abortion for the first 2 trimesters, as well as legal abortion in cases of medical emergencies. As well as means not exclusively. When they say there are no exceptions for threat to the mother's life, they don't care about that. That is a marketing ploy used by sadistic, satanic, sociopathic scum who wish to kill more babies. That is what's going on. And the disgusting reality is, if they are to be believed, they have actually already got the necessary signatures to send this to the ballot. Friends, this is what the left is. This is not a bug. This is a feature of progressivism. We started this showing you Hassan Piker threatening to murder political opponents, showing you Slutwalk Boise threatening to murder political opponents, demonstrating that the ADL lies about the left's willingness to assassinate political opponents. And then we continue forward and see that the left is willing to blatantly lie, to acknowledge the fact that they lie, and to continue forth in their lie anyway for the purpose of killing more babies in utero. That's what you're fighting. You are not fighting your equals. You are not fighting your countrymen. You are fighting spawn of Satan himself. That is a fact. And I dare, by the way, any of these Idahoans United, come on here, come debate me. You know you can't, because any pro-lifer or abolitionist would utterly destroy you. And you know they would destroy you. Get that wannabe reverend on here. That man who is kicking and screaming his way down to hell as he blasphemes the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ by daring to call himself by the disgusting title of reverend while he supports the massacre of babies in utero. Tell that man to come on here. Lest I sound too respectful, let me be perfectly clear that I don't respect anybody associated with this organization, and neither should you. Pretending like this is a viable subject to debate is satanic. It is horrendous. It is as evil gets. We always say, oh, it's Nazi-esque, it's Hitlerian, it's all that other kind of stuff. Guess what, friends? Hitler only killed 11 million. 6 million Jews and 5 million others. Abortionists have massacred 65 million in this country since Roe v. Wade was passed in 1973. So no, it's not Hitlerian. Hitler only killed 1/6 of what y'all killed. Y'all are significantly worse than what Hitler did. And you lie about it, and you know you are lying about it. By the way, I didn't even get to the point here yet where I was going to show you statistics, percent who give some or more justification for murdering Mamdani. 40% of people who were left of center said that there was justification for murdering Mamdani, who is a socialist, as did 53% of people who were centrist. And by the way, it is worth noting that 54% of people who are right of center said that there was justification there. That's bad. It's horrible. People, they should not be saying that. But guess what? Fun fact, 67% of people who are left of center said that it was okay to murder Donald Trump. We'll probably do a special report on that. It's an NCRI, Contagion and Ideology report, showing that assassination culture is growing, particularly on the left, but really in the whole country. I am digressing here. The reason I was going to mention that is because it's just yet another thing to add to the evil progressive left. These are not good people. But, we're hitting about an hour and 30 minutes. It's time for me to end this program. So I want to end with this. Friends, Idahoans United is lying to you. They are lying to you. They are telling you there are no exceptions in the state of Idaho for threat to the mother's life. That is not true. They are telling you there are no exceptions for threat to the mother's health. That is not true. We have demonstrated to you by reading the Idaho state law that that is not true. We have demonstrated to you by reading the act they want to pass that that's not what they're going for. And we have demonstrated to you by reading the correspondence that we had with them that that's not even what they believe. They know they're lying to you. They're aware of it. So if you live in the state of Idaho, it is absolutely crucial for you to get this video out, for you to get clips of this video out, for you to continuously speak up in favor of the unborn, and for you to go to the ballot in November and vote no on this absolutely horrible act. Idahoans United is not full of decent Americans who just happen to disagree with you. It is full of people who are lying so that they can deliberately kill babies. That's what's happening. Friends, in 2022, the year Jackson v. Dobbs was passed, 1,027 babies were murdered in utero in the state of Idaho. In 2023, after the Idaho State legislature passed the Defense of Life Act, 5 died. 5 too many, but 5. 1,022 babies saved right there. These scum would like to get rid of that. Don't let them. Don't let them. With that, friends, that's all for our program today. So if you like this video, please remember to like and share this video and consider subscribing to the channel if you have not done so. Hit that bell to get notified every time that we go live. If you have any questions, comments, criticisms, concerns, critiques, or anything of that nature in the comment section down below, please consider helping us out by contributing either to the Patreon or the PayPal. A lot of the stuff we did here today was simple, but it was our own work in terms of messaging Idahoans United ourselves, reading the bills ourselves, getting that image from Slutwalk Boise to the masses ourselves, right? So please do consider supporting the work that we do here. I think it's very important. Of course, want to remind you guys to be vigilant, to be watchdogs, to be in prayer. I'm going to ask you guys the question also. In the face of Armageddon, in the face of the death of this country by the justified wrath of God himself, will you compromise